What are some ways that we can care for ourselves when we're in a period that is more stressful, more anxious, or more depressed than normal? Well, today I'm going to share some of my own strategies. The first one is I like to get very specific about what it is I'm experiencing. I like to identify how intense it is, how frequent the problem is, and how long it lasts for. So, for example, it might be something like, um, I am, worrying about what happened in the news, and it's a 3 on a 0 to 10 scale, where 10 is unbearable. It's happening, every day, after I look at the news, in the morning and at night, and um, the worries might last, for anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour or two. This is just an example. Um, and then another way too that I like to be specific about what I'm experiencing is to identify what thoughts, what body sensations, what images, and what metaphors might capture like what I'm going through. So, for example, with the thoughts, we can look at what they are, like their content, but also like what theme we notice. So it might be something like, I'll give a common, like anxious thought might be something like, I said the wrong thing at this hangout with people, and I'm worried that they're going to think I am awkward. So to me, it's like, okay, I'm thinking about the past, right? So that would be one thing to notice. Two would be like, I'm worried about what other people think of me. So that's kind of the theme, right? Um, and what then I might recognize, okay, so sometimes the thought is like future oriented, right? Like I'm worried that they're not going to want to be my friend anymore, right? So then it's hopping to the future. Or maybe then I'm just thinking about the same thing and I'm replaying it in my mind over and over and over again. So almost like a whirlpool. So it can be very helpful to like take the thought and try to really study it, see what's happening. Another is to look at the body sensation. So, is the heart racing? Am I sweating? That kind of thing. And then images and metaphors. This could be like, oh, it feels like there's bees trapped in my head, or it feels like I'm frozen, or just stuck or trapped, or I'm in a car and the brakes have been cut and it's just going downhill. So you see how the metaphor, right, it holds a different weight to it. And then another thing that can be helpful is to track any changes. So to really get curious, like, is there a change with substances? So for you, this might be like if you use tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, any other mind or mood altering substance, to just track it. Be curious about how it might be impacting your mental health. Talk to a doctor if you have any questions or concerns about it. Or if you'd like to cut back, you can talk with a professional about ways that you might be able to work towards that. Also, looking at like the menstrual cycle or any other periodic factors in your life, like such as if you work overnight shifts like 2 days a month, it might be useful to track that. And so, some of the coping skills that I look at are managing any physical health conditions. So, this could be anything from like a high blood sugar, high blood pressure, an infection, again, working with a doctor to check in on the physical health piece. Two, really paying attention to that to-do list and seeing where can I draw back things. Um, Identifying my should list, all of the obligations that I feel like I should be doing, um, seeing what I can let slide for a while. Also taking care of myself with time in nature, time connecting with others, being mindful that venting might really be more of the circular thing. So there's a difference, right? Seeking support and maybe help with problem solving or even just distractions sometimes is better if I'm looping. Um, and then another thing is just to pay attention to sleep and rest. Google sleep hygiene tips if you would like some. My favorite thing is knowing that even if I'm getting less sleep, I can work on the restorative quality of my sleep. So that looks like me trying to not be angry or frustrated if I'm not sleeping and just working on like accepting it and knowing that for me personally, a sleepless night here and there, like I can still function. It's okay. They come and go. And so being more at peace with it helps me actually get more rest at the end of the day. Um, and things like, wearing an eye mask to block out light or wearing ear like a earplug to help block out sound. These can help me sleep deeper. And that's like within my control, right? As I just provide better circumstances or like an earlier bedtime. That's something that I can invite myself to do. And then whether or not I sleep all night, like that's outside of my control if I've done the other things. And then another piece here is overstimulation. So, one way to combat overstimulation is to try to do one thing at a time. So, for example, like if I'm washing dishes, instead of also listening to music or listening to a podcast or watching TV, I will just wash the dishes. Or, you know, if I'm like cooking, I will just cook. Or if I'm eating, I will only eat. Or if I'm going for a walk, I will just walk and like use my senses to engage in the environment. Because a lot of times we layer activities, and every activity we layer, we're adding like cognitive work. And we're not giving our brain a time to rest. It's just like constant input. And we are processing that. So to me, being mindful of this overstimulation and seeing where I can turn down the inputs because I can't control if like a kid is making a racket, but I can control if I'm gonna like add in more stimulation on top of it. So sometimes this is the act opposite situation because I've noticed that the more stressed people are, often the more likely they are to overstimulate. When in reality, we need to just take away some of these inputs and give ourselves time to rest and integrate. Because a lot of times it's in these periods where we're like showering or walking in silence. That's when we get the aha moment or like we get the clarity. Um, just kind of creeps in sideways. And then the one last one I want to share is the social media piece. And just being really mindful of what it is that I'm looking at with social media. Um, because everything's going to affect my mental health when it comes to social media. Like, I know that objectively speaking, it is likely harmful for me, right? So, being like aware of what I'm looking at, maybe shortening the time or swapping it out for something else, like reading the National Geographic or, reading a book that has a pleasant topic. All of these things can be helpful swaps for me personally. Um, but yeah, if you need support finding things, mental health therapy is a great way to do that. And I hope this was helpful for you. Please like or subscribe.